Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddassa. Yo bhante viditvana majjhe manta na lippati tambrumi mahapurisoti sodhasibbani majjagati. Dear Dhamma friends, as you know, we are going in a retreat. Even though it is distant, you may be staying at your home and trying to practice to the best of your ability. And we are trying to sort of take some examples, some guidance from various suttas from the Buddha's teaching in the canon, so that our practice would be straightened and we are sort of becoming confident that we are leading in the correct direction. So Buddha especially mentioned that when we are continuing our practice, it is necessary to support ourselves in five different ways. First, Buddha says that is the Sila Anuggahita, where one has to establish well in one's morality. Because you know, taming the mind, restraining the mind is not that easy. So first of all, we need to restrain the body and the speech. So for that, Buddha recommends adhering to precepts or observing precepts, so that remains like a fence for us to restrain, for us to get tamed. When our body and speech is fairly restrained, then our mind also become somewhat calm, peaceful, and again mind may not accuse us. Sometimes if there is any kind of a issue, any kind of a transgression happens, then our mind starts to accuse us, telling I did this, I did that, I am wrong, you are not suitable for this task. So likewise our mind itself is sort of condemning ourselves, looking down on ourselves. So that is in a way detrimental to the practice. On the other hand, if our mind says you are suitable for this job, you deserve some higher merit, you deserve some higher goal, something like that, then it is a sort of a positive atmosphere, and that we call sort of a outcome of the better sila, outcome of maintaining good precepts, maintaining good morality. So therefore Buddha says it is necessary to establish ourselves in morality, and that actually becomes kind of a foundation to develop satipatthana, to develop mindfulness. Now, when one is established well in mindfulness, in sila, morality, then one has to support oneself with Buddha's teaching as well. We need to learn, we need to listen to the teaching, so that we are not going to reinvent the wheel, but already Buddha has taught the path. He realized the path, he has become enlightened and he realized the path, and accordingly he preached Dhamma, which is beautiful in the beginning, beautiful, sublime in the middle, and sublime in the end. So we have faith in the Buddha, and we have faith in the Buddha's teaching, and we have faith in the followers of the Buddha. Now, time to time when we are hearing Buddha's teaching and when we are listening to it, so there are various results of that, various benefits of that, and that actually clear the path, that actually sort out any kind of doubts we have, and confidently we can continue our path. So therefore, referring Buddha's teaching is one of the very important tasks. Actually, that is what we are mainly focusing right now. And there are three more supports that Buddha recommends. The other three is that we need to have a kind of a discussion when we are continuing our path and we are actually practicing alone, and we may sometimes come across various difficulties, obstacles. And at that time, we sometimes don't know exactly what is the proper procedure to follow, what is the correct path. At that time, we can discuss with our teachers, Kalyana Mittas, so that we become clear about the path. We can get some advice, some clarification about the situation, and then again the confidence arises. again we get a lot of energy, encouragement, and then again we can continue our path. So therefore Buddha says time to time we need to support our practice with discussions, having a cordial discussion, having a very open discussion, so that our path become more clear. And then we need to develop fair amount of concentration in the mind, collectedness of the mind, because typically our minds are not concentrated or not well collected. It is going here and there, it is fairly scattered. So such scattered mind is not capable of understanding Buddha's teaching. Probably one can understand it superficially, but it is not kind of a profound understanding. But if you want to really understand Buddha's teaching, that has to be practiced. Then only one can really understand it, really realize it. So in such situation, we need a fairly focused mind, fairly collected mind. So that again we need to train, and that again we have to develop. So that support we call as tranquility support or samatha anuggahita, and Buddha recommend that we need to do that also again and again. And once the mind is well collected, well focused, that can be used to observe the present phenomena, especially the present phenomena, so that one can understand the reality. What is the correct situation of all these things? So likewise, that actually leads to the arising of wisdom. So that is called vipassana anuggahita, that we need to support our path in this kind of a wisdom. It is not that we simply read books or listen to Dhamma. Rather, we have to use this kind of methodology in order to realize Buddha's teaching. In one sense, we are maintaining kind of a foundation, that is the restraining or morality, sila anuggahita. And again we are getting the proper direction from Buddha's teaching. And if there are still any doubts, we can clear them through a discussion. And we are focusing our attention, concentrating, collecting our attention. And with that, we are observing the present phenomenon. So more and more we continue this observation, there is a possibility of arising of various insights, various understandings, direct knowledge, that leads to further clearance of our mind, for the cleansing of our mind. And that helps to further understand Dhamma, further understand Buddha's teaching. So in a way that again helps us to clarify the path. So in a way these 5 factors are fairly helping each other, interdependent, so that it is helping us to completely liberate our mind. So therefore Buddha says time to time that we need to use these supports so that our path become well established, our path become clearer. Now with that initial note, I like to take your attention to the sutta which we have selected, that is called Majjhe Sutta, discussing about the middle. So there are various types of middles in the teaching. Sometimes we call as the middle path. Sometimes various types of middle are discussed. So in this Majjhe Sutta, again 6 types of middle is discussed, and all are actually, we can say, relevant to our practice and touching fairly deep aspects of the Dhamma. And the story behind this whole sutta is also quite interesting. In one occasion, Buddha has met several Brahmins, and they are well educated, and they are from actually the Bhavari. Bhavari was one of the very great Brahmin teacher, and he get to know that Buddha has arisen in the world. He himself couldn't arrive the Buddha since he is fairly old, and still he is sending his students to meet the Buddha. Among them was Tissa Metteya, and he actually asked a question from the Buddha about kind of a great person. Who is a great person? So then Buddha says, having understood both ends, The wise one does not stick in the middle. I call him a great man. I call him a great man. He has here transcended the seamstress. Now this is kind of a puzzle, kind of a riddle. In that way, Buddha answered the question. Yo ubhante viditvana majjhe manta na lippati. One having understood the both ends, Majjhe manta na lippati. Using one's wisdom, using he's the wise one, does not stick to the middle. Tambrumi Mahapurisoti. I call him the great person. He's a great man. So ida sibbani macchaga. He here itself has transcended the stream stress. Now, so this is a kind of a riddle, and this Parayana Vagga, which is discussing about the going beyond fairly deep aspects of the Dhamma, is well referred even in the later stages, while even Buddha was living. Now this is like a commentary to that sutta, and one occasion there were Buddha and the Sangha residing at Isipatana. You know, Isipatana is one of the very popular place available in Varanasi. That is where Buddha has preached his first sermon, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Now, at this time also, Buddha and the Sangha was staying at Varanasi in Migadai. At the end of the Pindapata, Theros, some elder monks, have get together and assembled in a pavilion, kind of a circular pavilion, and they started the Dhamma discussion. And the Dhamma discussion theme is that riddle, which kind of riddle type of verse that Buddha has preached to that Tissametteya Brahmin. So what is the riddle? Yo ubhante viditvana majjhe manta nalippati. Having understood both ends, the wise one does not stick in the middle. Tambrumi Mahapurisoti soida sibbani macchagati. I call him a great man. He has here transcended the stream stress. So now this is their theme of discussion. So they want to discuss about this verse and they want to properly understand the verse. So what are they are to understand? Having understood both ends. So what are these both ends? So this is one question. What are the both ends? The wise one does not stick in the middle. So what is this middle? So that is another question. I call him a great man. He has here transcended the stream stress. So who is this stream stress? So these are the sort of points that one has to clarify in order to understand this riddle. So there are two ends referred in this verse, and there is a middle. And this wise person has well understood the both ends, and again he has not stick even to the middle, and he has transcended the stream stress. So what are the two ends? What is the middle, and who is the stream stress? Now this is the question, this is the discussion arisen among these learned and elder monks. So at that time there were 6 suggestions came to the audience. So they are now proposing their own types of answers. So in order to go through this sutta, I thought of taking one of the easiest answer in order to approach this sutta as well as to our retreat. So that is the second answer. In the second answer, one of the elder monks says, past is one end, future is the other end. Present is the middle. Past is one end, future is the other end. So those are the both ends, and there's a middle. Middle is nothing but the present. And stream stress is the craving. So this is his definition. This is his understanding. And he is putting this to the audience as his suggestion to this riddle. Now, this answer is quite relevant to ourselves, because if we really understand this verse and this particular answer, so there are a lot that we can learn in order to develop our practice. Now, if we consider our own minds, typically it never stay in the middle. It never stay in the present. It either stay in the past end or either stay in the future end. Now, this is not something difficult to understand. You all know, if you simply consider your own minds, you can easily understand our mind may be enjoying something happened in the past. Or we may be even regretting what has happened in the past. Because sometimes we have done some good things, we have enjoyed our senses, we went through various incidents, those may be quite joyful. So we have a lot of memories about those. As a result, we may be recalling them, and maybe we are enjoying them. On the other hand, there may be regrettable incidents that we did something wrong, or we taken a wrong decision, so that we may be even suffering today. So likewise, there are various past incidents which has caused a lot of suffering. Now, those are actually causing us kind of a regret. Still, mind is associating them. Even though we feel that sort of a sorrow in the present moment, still mind again and again go and think about those past incidents and starts to regret. This kind of a sickness we all have. Always mind is referring the past and again digging out what has happened, and again regretting. Again and again sorrowing, and again even lamenting. Especially when one becomes older and older, so this is what going to happen, because we know that we don't have much time in the future, so there may be less plans for the future, but there are a lot happen in the past, so they have a lot of memories about various incidents. So again and again they recall them, and mind go and attach to them, and again either they enjoy mentally, either they regret about what has happened. Now the danger here is, Buddha says there is a karmic consequence here. Even though we are not involved with, in the present moment, any kind of an action, so this regretting or this kind of a delusion, this kind of a fatuation happen in the mind is causing some type of karma. If you refer again in the Anguttara Nikaya, in the three-factor section, there Buddha says about the three types or three causes to arise karma. So one cause is to go or reflect about the past or remember about the past, and again applying one's attention to the past incidents, and as a result mind become fatuated. Again mind become lustful, again mind become sorrowful, again one starts to cry. So this type of a fatuation, Buddha says, causes karma. So even though this is kind of a mental activity, still it has the potential to create a lot of karma. So this is something that we have to take seriously, because we think that we have done something wrong and we understood the sort of the mistake, but again and again if we start to regret about it, so that actually cause unnecessary amount of karmic results. Because we are recreating that situation in the mind, again and again mind become sorrowful, lamenting, depressed, and as a result new karma is also going to arise. So this is actually harmful to ourselves. And on the other hand, how about the future? Now we know we all have a lot of plans about the future, how to live in the future, how to prosper in the future, and especially when one is young. So there are many dreams about the future. Maybe about one's education, having a good education, going to a university, having a good job, and getting married, building up a house, buying a car. So likewise, so many dreams are available in typical people's mind. And again, sometimes one likes to migrate, one likes to sort of have a promotion, have to become popular. So likewise, there are so many dreams, ambitions, one's mind is again and again getting involved. Now, this kind of future planning is always present in our mind, and that is the other end that typically our minds are associating. Now, if we consider typical behavior of our mind, so these are the two ends our minds are associating. Now, even in this future association, still have the potential to create karma. That is also mentioned in that same sutta, which Buddha says that there are 3 causes to produce karma. So in one such cause is to think about the future. Even though we haven't yet implement the task, still as we think about it, there is sort of a lust can arise in the mind. There is a potential anger arise in the mind. There is a potential delusion happen in the mind. As a result, again and again mind get deluded, again and again mind become lustful, mind become angry, and as a result mind become infatuated. Now, this actually causes karma. So therefore, even though we consider it as a mental activity, it has the potential to generate some amount of karma. So therefore, don't think that even we are sort of thinking, we are sort of innocent. Unfortunately, it has a potential to generate karma. So this is something critical that we need to think, that Buddha says there are 3 causes to produce karma. That is to linger about the past, and again once applying one's attention to something lustful, something sorrowful, something regretting. As a result, mind become depressed, mind become infatuated. Similarly to the future, daydreaming, fantasizing, sexual fantasies, all these actually are detrimental to one's mind and unfortunately generates karma as well. Now these are the 2 ends according to this explanation, past and the future. Now, what about the present? Typically our mind very rarely associate present unless we sort of get sick or unless our body becomes fairly painful, so that automatically our attention is drawn to the pain, or else sometimes we have to be utterly attentive, otherwise we may sort of meet with an accident. Suppose you are sort of driving. At that time you need to maintain some amount of mindfulness, alertness, and some amount of living in the present is needed. But on the other hand, most of the time we never live in the present, either in the past or in the future. Now, in our practice, we are now trying to take our attention to the present, not to the past, not to the future, as much as possible to the present. So this is very important, because in the Satipatthana practice, Buddha says, Kaye Kayanupassi Vihirati. So one has to dwell directly knowing the body. It is not that you are trying to know the body through books or through internet or from someone else. Rather, you need to know about the body directly by yourself. It's a kind of a direct experience. This direct experience is only possible in the present moment. You can't do it in the past, or you can't do it in the future. You can only do it in the present moment. So this direct touch, this direct experience is one of the key features of mindfulness practice. So therefore, in our early stages of our practice, it is kind of a struggle to bring our attention to the present moment, because we are not used to maintain our attention in the present moment. As a result, mind always distracted towards the past and the future. Now our duty is to again and again bring our attention back to the present moment. So we are using various techniques to facilitate this process. Say, for example, we are taking our own body as a kind of a anchor in order to associate with the mind. Mind again and again associate this body as an anchoring point. Say breathing. So breathing is one of the involuntary process available in the mind, available in the body, and again we are trying to pay attention to breathing. When inhale happens, we know it is the inhale. When exhale happens, we know that is an exhale. So likewise, again and again, this very ordinary experience we are using mindfully so that our attention is brought back, established well in the present moment. Now the result is mind forgets to go back to the past or to the future. Slowly, mind stays with the present moment. Now this is kind of a skill that one has to develop. It may not happen simply because you know about meditation, simply because you have a good education, simply because you have read a lot of books, simply because you have listened to so many Dhamma sermons. So this skill only possible when you are practicing. You got to train your mind in order to live in the present moment. So this is why we have to sort of have our own time, spend our own time, have a kind of a retreat situation, maintain some sort of a seclusion, again and again bring our attention back to this present moment. So this is a kind of an art that one needs to live, because otherwise our mind typically go and linger in the past or the future. Again and again now we need to draw it back, pull it back, and establish ourselves in the present moment. So we are using various techniques. Inhale and exhale, breathing is one of such techniques, because this breathing only happens in the present moment. So we are using, or we are taking that advantage and trying to keep our attention also in the present moment by means of breathing. Similarly, say rising and falling of the abdomen, another beautiful technique where you are trying to keep your attention in the present moment. So you are keeping your attention on the rising and falling. Rising and falling also happen in the present moment. As a result, our attention is established well in the present moment. Not in the past, not in the future, but in the present moment. Suppose you are keeping your attention on feeling. Suppose it's a pleasurable feeling. So this pleasurable feeling, if you know it is happening in the present moment, you may be trying to know it well. You are trying to examine it, investigate it. So this investigation, this examination actually happens in the present moment, because feeling cannot happen in the past or the future, but it can only happen in the present moment. So when you are observing it, examining it, our attention is also established well in the present moment, so that we are not in the past, not in the future, but very well established in the present moment. Suppose you are keeping your attention on heartbeat. Heartbeat also can happen only in the present moment. So if you are paying enough attention to heartbeat, slowly your attention is well established in the present moment. So likewise, there are many techniques one can use in order to establish oneself in the present moment. Suppose you are doing walking meditation. When your left foot is touching the ground, you are keeping your attention there. When your right foot is touching the ground, you are keeping your attention there. So likewise, again and again, you are properly aiming and establishing attention at each and every place. Now this is something again Buddha has beautifully mentioned in the Baddekaratta Suttas. In Majjhe Nikaya, there are 4 Baddekaratta Suttas, which is talking about sublime seclusion, and there Buddha says atitang nan vagameya nappatikanke anagata. So don't follow the past, or don't too much think about the future. Yadatitang pahinantang appattancha anagata, because the past has already gone, it has finished. Appattancha anagatang, the future hasn't come yet. Paccupannancha yo dhammang tatta tatta vipassati. So one has to observe this Paccupannancha dhamma, that is the present moment phenomena. So very beautifully, very precisely, concisely, Buddha has mentioned that one has to free from the past, free from the future, and once it is successful, one's attention is drawn to the present moment, there also the present arising phenomena one has to observe. So this is, in a way, in a nutshell, what we are trying to do in Satipatthana practice. Kaye kayanupassī vihirati. So we have to directly know the body at this present moment. So as I mentioned, there are various processes happening in the body, and we may select one of them, and we are trying to establish our attention, mindfulness on that process. So the physical process and the mental process are well synchronized and continuing in the present moment. Now, this is, in a way, is the first step in Satipatthana practice. Because without this, the improvement is impossible. First of all, we need to establish ourselves in the present moment. So therefore, that we can say is the first step, foundation, establishment of the mindfulness, Satipatthana, establishment of mindfulness. So that is actually the first step of our practice. Now, again, suppose your mind still not tamed, still distracting. Now again, you can use some other techniques in order to facilitate this process. Say, for example, you are keeping your attention on rising and falling, still mind goes to the past and the future, so your mind is not yet established in the present moment. You can utilize noting or labeling that when you are aware that rising happens, you can call it as rising. You can mentally verbalize it as rising. It is like a kind of mentally seconding, approving what happens in the physical, what is happened in the physical world. Similarly, when falling happens, when your abdomen comes back, when falling happens, you can mentally verbalize it is as falling. So the idea is the physical process is well recognized, and mentally it is approved, mentally it is seconded. So this way we are sort of triggering the mind also to the present moment, sort of remembering or triggering the mind also to establish in the present moment. Mind may habitually go into the past or the future, but when we feel this present moment phenomenon, when we feel this rising and falling, that helps us to bring back our attention and establish ourselves in the present moment. So these are very, very simple techniques, but has very profound results. These have very profound meaning, even though they appear like very simple. Actually, all the mindfulness techniques are extremely simple. But simple does not mean easy to practice. So sometimes people misunderstand. So how this kind of a very simple practice becomes such kind of a freedom of mind, such kind of a complete liberation. Because this technique appears very simple. But that is the beauty of the Dhamma, where simplicity leads to some profound understanding. It is not the complex or complicated formulas taking us to the profound understanding, but very simple techniques are taking us to very profound understanding. So that is one of the rule of thumb that we have to keep in mind when we are in the practice, where when the technique is extremely simple, that has the potential to bring our mind or the wisdom to a deeper understanding. Now, in this sutta, so therefore one Thero, one elder monk, is giving this as his proposal. So he is telling, past is one end, future is the other end, middle is the present. And who is the seamstress? And craving is the seamstress. Now, what craving does? Actually, that is also not difficult to understand. So, why our minds always stay in the past or future? That is actually because of this craving. Craving actually do some sort of sticking, some sort of combining of past and the future. Suppose you are thinking about the past. There are many thoughts about the past. Suppose you are now a sort of an elder person, but now you are thinking about your time at the college. Say you are spending some time with your friends, how you enjoyed the college life. So likewise, something happened in the past. Now you are enjoying that. So your mind is sort of remembering those. After a little while, immediately you got a sort of a desire about the news that you want to think what's going to happen in the future. You are now sort of we all are now facing a pandemic. So now we want to know about vaccination and whatever it is. Now a kind of a desire arises. Now mind jumps to the future. Say about vaccinations. Is it going to work? Is it the best vaccination? Blah, blah, blah. So now you are thinking about the future. After some time, again, there's a desire about something happened in the past. Say you had a very good time with your friends, partying, and there's a very good enjoyment. Unlike today, where you have to maintain social distancing, but you have a very good companionship, partying in the past. Now immediately that desire arises in the mind. Again now you are thinking about the past. While you enjoy that, again there's a desire arise, attaching something to the future. So likewise, this seamstress is always sewing past and the future. Assume that past and the future is like two clothes. And this seamstress is always sewing these two clothes, combining these two clothes, past and the future. Past cloth and the future cloth is being sewn by this seamstress. Now, as a result, what happens? We always being missed the present moment. We never live in the present moment because craving as a seamstress always stitching, always sewing past and the future. We are being wrapped in this past and the future. So this is what happens to our mind. We always have various things happen in the past, always have dreams, plans, wishes about the future. That is all are desirable, and as a result, this desire leads or craving leads us to that kind of a mind-made world. These are not actually true things. What has happened has already gone. The future hasn't come yet. Still, our mind likes to stay in the past. Still, our mind likes to stay in the future. Think about the future because of craving. So this is the answer this Thero, this elderly monk, is giving. Now, how about the present moment? Now we all know it is true. We should not associate the past, we should not associate the future, but we have to establish attention in the present moment. True. On the other hand, one needs to understand, even though we need to leave aside past and the future, it does not mean we can't learn from the past or we can't plan about the future. We can learn from the past and we can still plan about the future. That may be necessary for living. But the beauty is, when you are well developed in mindfulness, when your mind shifted towards the past, when it is thinking about the past, without completely losing the present moment, you can do it while establishing in the present moment. So you very well know that this is a memory. You very well know that your mind is thinking about the past. Knowingly you are thinking. That is not harmful. because you haven't lost the present moment. You are not completely bewildered by the past. You are not completely overwhelmed by the past. Rather, you are thinking about the past in a controlled environment. You are fairly established in mindfulness. While being there, you are thinking about the past. You are sort of getting some data. You are making some statistics by using the previous data, memories. So this may be useful. But the important thing is you haven't completely lost the present moment. You are well grounded in the present moment, and while being there, you can think about the past. Similarly, while being well grounded in the present moment, you can plan about the future. You can think about the future. So this is also sort of a planning in a controlled environment where you are not lost the present moment. You are not completely deluded about the future plan. You are not being absorbed to the future plan. Rather, you are fairly established in the present moment, but still you can think or plan about the future. Now, when you are established in the present moment, so Buddha says, it is not that simply establishing in the present moment, but one has to further develop. First of all, first step is to establish in the present moment. True. But that is not the end. So that is why this verse beautifully says, having understood both ends. Now in this answer, both ends are past and the future. The wise one does not stick in the middle. So knowing the middle is one aspect, but another point is mentioned that one does not stick in the middle. So how one can do that? So this is also very relevant to our practice. Suppose you are doing walking meditation. So you are able to know when your left foot is touching the ground. You are able to know when your right foot is touching the ground. So likewise, suppose you are starting your session as a beginner. Very good, very relaxed. There is no hurry. When your left foot is touching the ground, you know it. When your right foot is touching the ground, you know it. Now, if you are continuing like this, more and more, you are leaving aside the past and the future, and you are establishing your attention in the present moment. Good. Now, this is not the end. Now, Buddha asks us to develop clear comprehension. Sato sampajano. So, this sampajano, the term sampajano available in the Satipatthana Sutta is very important. So, when one is successful in establishing oneself in the present moment, one has to clearly know what is happening in the present moment. So, on what you have established your attention. Say you are establish your attention on your foot. So, what you can know? What are the information available? What are the details available? So, that's something that we have to search. That is something that we need to examine. Simple establishment of mindfulness does not give this information. Rather, we have to have little curiosity. We have to have some investigative mind, attentive mind, in order to know this subtle information. At the beginning, you might be able to know only hardness of the ground, maybe the softness of the ground, maybe the heaviness of the leg. So these are some initial information. But as your mindfulness is sharpened, you should be able to know more and more detail. Whether is it the heel touching the ground first, whether it is the sides touching the ground, or whether the toes touching the ground. So likewise, it is necessary or it is required to closely examine this process. Then only you are able to clearly know this process. So this clear knowing is one of the important fact of Satipatthana practice. So Buddha says, Ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo sattanang visuddhya. There's a direct path for the purification of the beings, and in that, when one is developing that direct path, there are certain criterion that we need to meet. Kaye kayanupassi vihirati atapi sampajano satima. So these are certain terms that we need to keep it in our mind. Sampajano, satima. So one has to be mindful and clearly knowing. So when you are able to establish your attention in the present moment, that is not enough. You need to clearly know what is going on. Suppose you are now observing very closely what is really going on. As a result, suppose you are able to know various facets of this process. You know there is a hardness, you know there is softness, you know there is heaviness, you know there is lightness, you know there is coolness, you know there is heat, you know there is movement, there are vibrations. So likewise, these fundamental characteristics become more and more evident to the practitioner. Previously we were in a conceptual world, and this kind of simple practice helps us to leave aside that conceptual world, come out of that conceptual world, and well establish in this direct touch. In this direct touch, in this particular example, what is available are the element characteristics. So Matara Sri Jnanarama Mahathero very beautifully mentioned that the yogi, the practitioner, should know the language of the elements. So the elements are talking to us from their own language, not in our language. So what is their language? So that is the element characteristics. When hardness, softness, heaviness, lightness are available, so that is the indication that the earth element is present. When there is a vibration, movement is available, that's an indication that air element is present. When heat, cold is available, that's an indication that the heat element or fire element is present. When there is a flowing, wetness is available, that's an indication that the water element is present. So likewise, so more and more your attention is sharpened, you are able to recognize these element characteristics. Now, more and more you recognize that, then another beautiful thing going to happen, that after some time, so even though rationally we think that more and more information going to be available, more and more information is going to be available, but at a given threshold, it starts to switch to something else. Rather than continuously increase the number of information, at a given time, it may start to disappear and letting us know something else. So that is the sort of common characteristics to all these elements. Even though they appear very different, they still have some common characteristics. They all have the nature to come and go. They all have the nature to arise and pass away. They all have nature to change. So these are some common characteristics that one gets to know. Now as a result, now one's mind is further developing through wisdom. One may understand how impermanent these phenomena are, how vulnerable this whole process is, how unsatisfactory this process is, how ungovernable, beyond our control is this process is. So likewise, there's a fair amount of insights are possible while you may be engaged in walking meditation. It's available in sitting meditation as well. So we are considering as an example the walking meditation. So you may understand, so when you are continuing your practice, so these kinds of insights are possible. So what is the result of these insights? Now mind loosens the grip. Mind does not like to grasp now. Mind is not closely attached to it now. Rather, mind starts to detach from this process. Mind maintains some kind of a distance from this process. Now, this distant observation, this detached observation helps to completely let go of this process, of all this phenomenon, all these elements at a later stage. Now, this is where that Buddha says the wise one does not stick in the middle. At the beginning, actually, we have to stick. That has a reason. We are closely observing the phenomenon. We are closely observing element characteristics. That is something like we are sticking to the process. But as we are observing the process, we more and more we understand the reality. We more and more understand its true behavior. As a result, mind starts to detach. It's a kind of a natural phenomenon happens that when you know clearly the true picture, then there is no reason to grasp. There is no reason to hold. There is no reason to crave. As a result, mind starts to detach. Now we facilitate this detachment. We facilitate this dispassion. Now mind dispassionately watching the process. Mind is continuing the observation, but there's a kind of a dispassion. There is no sort of any craving. There is no any kind of grasping. But very gentle, detached, ordinary, monotonous kind of an observation. Now, when one is continuing this practice, there could be a possibility that completely the mind may let go of this observation, let go of this examination, let go of this all these phenomena, and mind become completely free. So at that time one can say, this wise person is not attached or not stick to the present moment. Now he has well understood the past, well understood the future, and similarly he has understood the present, and not only that, he has freed from the present. He is not sticky to the present. So that person, Buddha says, is a great person. That person, Buddha says, a great man. Now, if one is able to do such a thing, then one is able to overcome that seamstress. Who is the seamstress? That is the craving. So at that given moment, when the mind is free, there is no craving. So one is free from craving. So if your mind is still under the influence of craving, under the influence of seamstress, so that indicates you are either attached to the past, either attached to the future, or even if you are able to free yourself from past and future, still you may be attached to the present. But if there is enough wisdom available, then you have the potential even to be free from the present. Then there is no craving in the mind. So such a person, Buddha say, is a great person, as a great man. Now therefore, so in this sutta, in Majjhe Sutta, this particular solution given to that riddle is also a very profound understanding. It's also a very important explanation. And Buddha says that if one, and actually in this discussion, all the monks are saying, if one clearly knowing this phenomenon, if one directly know this phenomenon, fully understand that, then he has clearly known what has to be clearly known, he has fully understood what has to be fully understood, and by doing so, in this very life, he makes an end of suffering. Now this is again a very profound statement. So there is something to clearly know. So this person, this practitioner has well clearly know or directly know that. Say for example, in the Satipatthana practice, this direct knowing, direct touch is the most crucial thing. So there is something to directly know. So in the Kaya Anupassana, the establishment of body, mindfulness of the body. So the phenomenon is the body. So you have to clearly know about the body. So the practitioner has clearly known about the body. Actually, it does not mean that you are going through a MBBS exam or anatomy exam or something like that. Rather, you are clearly knowing through your direct touch. You have a well-focused attention that is well established in the present moment, and you are continuing the observation. That way you are able to clearly know or directly know. And when one has fully understood that phenomenon, when you are able to clearly know and fully understood the phenomenon, there is nothing to grasp, nothing to hold. So as a result, one is able to remove suffering or remove craving. As a result, one becomes free. One is able to free from suffering. Now, this very teaching, this very solution is also very profound, because if one is able to free oneself from the past and the future, that indicates fair amount of cutting off of the craving, fairly taming of the mind. And without stopping there, if one is still able to clearly know the present moment phenomena, understand its drawbacks, and able to completely let go of the present phenomena and to have a completely free mind, liberated mind, so that indicates one is able to completely free from suffering. So therefore, even this one solution have that capacity. So therefore, in this sutta, it is said, a bhikkhu directly knows what should be directly known, fully understands what should be fully understood, and by doing so, in this very life, he makes an end of suffering. So even this particular solution, past and the future being the both ends, present being the middle, and seamstress being the craving, is the solution given here, discussed today. And even that solution has a fairly profound depth. And if we are able to practice, understand that depth, so that itself has a great advantage, many benefits. So with that note, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. So we look into the other answers as well in the future days. And therefore this sutta is actually giving us many dimensions to our practice, so that we become fairly confident, and again we can look at various other about our own practice in many different angles. So with that, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon, and thank you very much for participation.